afternoon, good day to everyone that is joining us today. We do appreciate your coming to be part of this historical Black Diaspora Voice event. And we have no other than our Mama Africa, someone who all of us from afar have followed. Some of us have been privileged to follow her intimately. And today we are going to be talking about the things that are important to us as the Black diaspora. This individual is someone who has always believed that the power of the Black diaspora lies in the hands of the Black diaspora, and that the diaspora is all the Black folks are all one, that we together can change the world. And I am Remy Duyile. I will be your host for today. We do apologize for the glitches. We were trying to get it on YouTube and a few other streaming, but someone just said that the bandwidth might not be enough for all of that. So apologies for the glitch on the start, but we are back to normalcy now. And thank you so much. I see Dr. Oluwayemi is in the house. I see Mr. Christopher. Some of you have your names posted, some don't. For everyone that's joining now, we had over 71 people register. So we're hoping that we will get more people to come in and be part of this. So as we await the other people to join, especially our distinguished speaker, we would like to encourage all of us to continue to stay together, to be together during this movement of what we call the Black diaspora movement. If Africa were meant to be what we want it to be, it's up to each and every one of us. I am not the speaker. I am just the host. So when I bring the speaker on, as soon as I know that she's online, you will be convinced that the Black diaspora have leaders along the communities, locally and globally, who are really doing what they need to do. And I hear that Ambassador is on. So without further ado, I would like to introduce to us, represent to some, Dr. Arikana Chihombori-Kwao in her role as permanent representative to the African Union Mission in Washington, D.C. Her Excellency Arikana Chihombori-Kwao, MD, worked tirelessly towards fulfilling her mandate, which was to undertake, develop, and maintain relationships between the African Union and the executive and legislative branches of the United States government, the African Diplomatic Corps, the Africans in the diaspora, and the Bretton Woods institutions. This was specifically in relation to the implementation of the African Continental Free Trade Agreement and advancing the priority areas of Agenda 2063. In fulfilling this mandate, she brought renewed energy, yes she did, because I know my energy got renewed, to the African Union mission, as well as new ideas and programs that we are implemented since her appointment in 2016 to her departure in 2019. Her efforts at mobilizing the diaspora as people of African descent and not as citizens of any single African country is unprecedented and exemplifies her ability to unify people around a common goal, speaking with one voice as one Africa and one continent. It gives me distinguished pleasure to bring up Dr. Arikana Chihombori-Kwao, our Mama Africa, someone who has mentored some of us and still mentoring us to know that our Africa, if it's meant to be, is up to each and every one of us. So welcome to you, Madam Ambassador. We appreciate your taking time out of your busy schedule, and we are here to learn at your feet and hope that the next few minutes that we spend together will help some of us get more inspired to take the ball and run with it, so we, the Black diaspora, can work in unison, which is what has been your singular goal. Ever since I've met you, that has been your singular goal. And your diaspora is described inclusive of the African American. And that's what makes you so distinguished amongst everybody else. Without further ado, we would like to welcome you, Your Excellency, to this event. And we say that you go ahead and please give some remarks, welcome remarks to our audience. And we have a few questions for you that will help you and I to take our viewers along the journey that we have planned for. Thank you so much for honoring our invitation, and we appreciate you. Your Excellency, over to you.
Thank you, my sister. It's good to see you. You're looking beautiful as usual.
Thank you. I can't see you. Where are you? We need to see you.
I'm here. I can see you.
Okay, we want you on the screen.
Can you see me?
I want you on the screen that I'm in. Can you double click so people can see you?
What do I double click?
Your picture, please, so you can remove mine. Okay, let me. Okay, there you go. Yes, yes. I see you now. Thank you.
Okay. Okay, thank you again, my sister. Keep up the good work of promoting our Africa. I think that we are at a very critical time in the history of the Black race. We're at a critical time in the history of Africa. I think someone asked me, what was so different about the death of George Floyd, unlike others? And I remember saying to myself, singularly, the one thing that took me to a different place when it came to the death of George Floyd, it was actually the murder. I've seen many people die as a medical doctor, but I've actually never seen anybody murdered. And so right there in front of our very own eyes, I saw someone murdered over a period of almost 9 minutes. That was just unbelievable. And the murderer had his knee on his neck, constantly grinding his knee from time to time into his neck, hands in his pocket, so comfortable, so callous, like no big deal. Well, right under his knee, a human being is begging for his life. I just have never seen anything like it. Then you wonder, how can a human being regress to that level? How bad do things have to get? Even a wild animal, that police officer would have had mercy on that wild animal. That was not awarded to George Floyd. Then it underscores what we sometimes deny to accept as a fact and a truth, that they don't see us as human beings. They see us even worse than animals. That is the only way you can justify why he felt so comfortable. And after his lifeless body was loaded onto the gurney, when they came in, they did not start CPR. They did not give him oxygen. They just picked his lifeless body and just threw him on the gurney and into the ambulance. And I watched the 4 officers just kind of like, okay, done, on to the next case. Just went on in their cars like no big deal, no fanfare. So when you look at it and say, of course, that particular day, I was horrified. I felt defeated. I felt tremendous despair. And honestly, just defeated, completely defeated. The question then becomes, I cannot afford to feel that way. I had 2 days of that, but then I got up and I said, I have to be strong. That can easily be my grandson 10 years from now, 20 years from now. That could be my granddaughter. So I don't have time to be down. I don't have time to feel defeated. So I decided the fighter in me is going to come out even more. So we need to talk to these issues, but why is it they feel entitled to abuse us, to just mistreat us? And then I started looking through our history, and I said, we, the Black race, are the only people who have actually been extremely loyal to the white race. Going back to Africa when they came to the continent 600 years ago, they took everything we had. They abused us. They colonized us. They started taking our children into slavery. The children came across the Atlantic. They worked for them in their plantations. They were beaten up. They were raped. They were lynched. We built their cities. We built their economy, not only in the Americas, but in Europe. Then we started getting more education, and they train us and educate us so we can continue to work for them. To this day, the Black man is managed in such a way that you can only rise to a certain level. Otherwise, they want us to stay at a certain level so we can continue to take care of them. The same is happening on the continent. The question then becomes, white men, what do you really want from us, the Black race? We have served you fully. Yes, we shouldn't have, but we have. What else can we do so you can stop hating us so much? You can stop abusing us to the extent that you abuse us. Well, the answer is you don't expect those who set out to oppress you to change. It's like a bully. The bully is not going to change until you stand up to them. But that is what's needed. We have got to stand up. We have got to defend our turf. We Black people must unite and realize once and for all, enough is enough. But we're still suffering from a major serious illness, and that is the legacy of slavery and colonization. We are the only race that does not come together when it comes to issues pertaining to our race. The rest of the races, particularly in this country, which is a melting pot, the Chinese diaspora, the Mexican diaspora, the Indians, the Irish American, German American, Italian Americans, they come together and stick together like a super glue. A Black man will not open a shop in Chinatown, will not open a shop in Little Italy. And yet we are more than happy to have them open shops in our neighborhoods. As a matter of fact, we'll walk past a Black man's shop in a Black neighborhood to patronize a Chinaman or an Irishman or any other race. It is a serious disease that is disgusting, and it all goes down to the systematic brainwashing that we have been put through. We are a wounded people. We do not like ourselves. The self-hate which we were systematically put through, we must understand it from the root. And I finally concluded that if I were to really go back to the beginning to say, how did we Black people end up in this frame of mind where we can seem to do the right thing for our sheer survival? I found myself going to the missionaries who were sent to Africa. We, using myself growing up in my village, we did not know the color Black and white. The missionaries came, they told us about the color white and the color Black. They told us the angels were white, even though they've never seen the angel. They told us Jesus Christ was white, even though he was brown, we know that. The Bible says so. And then they turned around and say, they themselves are white, even though they don't look like the white sheet of paper. Then they looked at us and said, there's something called the devil. Does all kind of bad things, and everything Black is undesirable. You don't want to be like the devil. And then they turned around, they looked at us, even though we don't look Black, they said, you two are Black. Now we go to church, we get on our knees, and we worship images that do not look like us. We worship white angels, we worship a white Jesus. How does a child grow up with good self-esteem, with love for themselves, if they're forever trying to be something they can never be? The children will go to worship images of white people and white angels, which are all lies. And so everybody aspires to being white. Subliminal messages. We want to be white because white is better. White is desirable. White represents the angels. Black represents the devils. Why is it that we Black people have never questioned that? Who has seen the devil? Who has seen the angels? And yet it was just given to us and we have accepted it. You go to churches across Africa, you see white Jesus, even though Jesus was brown and we all know it. Because when Mary and Joseph were running away from King Herod, they were told to take Jesus to Egypt. Why Egypt? Because in Egypt, he would blend in with others who looked just like him. That had they sent him to Europe, he would have stood out like a sore tooth. So at every level, we have been lied to and we have done nothing. We have not challenged it. There is nothing wrong with religion. It's the mistranslation of religion that is a problem. So my problem is, why do we Black people accept these blatant lies and take them as truth? In my village, being beautiful, being an angel was based on deeds, not how you look. Being ugly, being a devil was based on deeds, not how you look. Perfect example is the police officer who murdered George Floyd. That is the personification of a devil. That is the devil. And let's call a devil for what it is. How do we undo the damage that has been done to us? How do we undo the lies that we have been fed for centuries? And we are now just passing it from one generation to the other. Well, it starts with knowledge and understanding and calling a lie a lie. And that's how we undo that. And once we undo the damage, that the brainwashing that has been done to us, it's easy for us to pick up and start fighting and push back and stand up and realize that we're just as good and just as beautiful and equal to anybody on earth. Black people are some of the most intelligent, hardworking people I know. We have got to get out of this mentality of feeling inferior, because those who set out to oppress us, that's exactly what they want. So are you going to continue to let them win this game of mind, of playing their games with our minds? Are you going to continue to allow it? Are you going to allow them for you to pass that on to your children, grandchildren, and generations to come? How are we going to put an end to this? Well, it starts by economic empowerment, which is the one thing they denied us as Black people in the United States, in Europe, as well as in Africa. While in Africa, we may have gotten our political independence, which is limited, while in America and Europe, slavery may have ended, but the truth of the matter is we're still enslaved. The slavery has taken a different nature. The lynching has taken a different nature. We're still under siege. What is it going to take for us as a Black race to say, just like other races have done, we must unite, we must come together, and we must speak with one voice? You see, a respected Africa equates to a respected children of Africa, no matter where you find them. There are only 15 million Jewish diaspora and a little bitty country called Israel. And yet they're the most powerful race, because the Jews realized quickly after Hitler that they needed to look internally. They may not like each other as individuals, but when it comes to Israel, they stick together like super glue. Well, look, on the other hand, we Black people, there are 1.7 billion Black people on earth, 1.3 on the continent and 400 million outside. And we have the largest land mass on earth, over 30,000 square miles of land. And yet we're the poorest. Something is wrong with this picture. It's because we fail to unite. And that is where the white man has won his game against us Black people. They have put in place systems to keep us from not only loving ourselves, but loving each other. The self-hate is within us. When you find yourself coming together with your community and you need to do something that's good for the community, and you find yourself not trusting your brother or your sister, there goes the disease. Check yourself. We have got to get over this self-hate. We may not like each other as individuals, but when it comes to Africa, when it comes to our Black race, we have to stick together like super glue, just like the other nations do. But it takes a personal commitment. Don't wait for somebody else to change before you can change. You see, your brother over here does not trust you. Well, guess what? You don't trust him either. Your sister over here, you don't trust her. She doesn't trust you either. So we're at a stalemate. So nothing gets done. And those who set out to oppress us, they're constantly winning. They are constantly winning. Well, I say enough is enough. We have got to come together. We have got to speak with one voice. And we must understand, as people of African descent, what unites us first and foremost is our Blackness and our Africanness. And that we must accept that Africa is home. So if I can conclude by saying, let's all come together. Let's understand what we have been put through, that our sheer survival, in order to stop any more George Floyds from dying under the hands of those who are supposed to be protecting us, it starts with our unity and with us speaking with one voice. Two things that needs to happen. We must unite for the purposes of going home so we can take over the contracts that are being given out to foreigners. We must unite for the purposes of being able to go to the African Union and have the 6th region ratified as a decision, so we can have diaspora ambassadors who go to the African Union and represent us. We need to be on the table when it comes to the issues pertaining to the African diaspora. That we must do. And thirdly, we must pull our funds together through the Diaspora Fund. That is the ultimate liberation. When the diaspora are sitting on $5 billion, $10 billion, now you have a voice. Sadly, the world we live in right now, if you are poor, you might as well go home and shut up. Economic empowerment, we must pull our monies together. That means our minds have got to change. That means you got to have a serious conversation with the image in the mirror. That means you must say, I love my children enough that I'm going to stand up and I'm going to believe in my race. So we ultimately can put an end to the abuse and the disrespect that's being meted to Black people, not only in Africa, but around the globe. Thank you, my sister.
Thank you, Your Excellency. Wow. As always, you have articulated the problems very beautifully. And there were a few quotes that I wrote when you were talking. A respected Africa is a respected children of Africa. And you've painted the picture very well, the self-hate and all of the, and you even went to my next question, because we know all of these problems. You beautifully itemized them and helped us get over it during your tenure as the ambassador to the African Union, and progress was started. I don't know what's going on now, but progress was started, and we know there are still things that you are doing to ensure that we do not stop. We've heard all of this issues, Your Excellency. We want to know, there's some of our African American brothers and sisters, their goal is to taste their Africa. Their goal is that unity, but there's still that self-hate even amongst the Black to Black. What can we do intentionally from now to ensure that all of us think as one and we take our Africa back and leverage our continent with all our Black brothers and sisters around the globe?
Well, first of all, it'll be interesting that the descendants of the formerly enslaved have been here for centuries. The more recent immigrants out of Africa, you're looking at the past maybe 50, 60 years. There's never been an entity that united all the diaspora, not in the Americas or in Europe. There just hasn't been. Somehow other races can do it. So while I was the representative, that was very clear to me that there was a need for such an entity. So since leaving office, I've started an entity called African Diaspora Development Institute. You can go to ouraddi.org and sign up. What we need, we're planning to have at least 1 million people sign up. We're calling it the ADDI family. We have a directory of African companies and professionals. The reason is the African Continental Free Trade Area, which is the policy that's going to be implemented beginning January. It's going to open the doors of trading in Africa. 90% of goods traveling around Africa are going to be duty-free. A lot of opportunities are going to open up because for the first time, we're going to be talking about continental development, not development of individual countries. Those opportunities are going to be opportunities that only come once in a lifetime. The Chinese are ready to move in and grab them. The Europeans are ready to move in and grab them. And yet the real owners of that wealth and the contracts are the children in the diaspora. We are not united. We must unite for the purposes of making sure that that seat that has our name, that's being occupied by the Chinese, that's being occupied by the Europeans, we have got to take back our seat. The continental development agenda for Africa must be driven by the African diaspora. When we have 1 million people registered with the database, it is easy to go to the African heads of states and say, Your Excellencies, you have been talking about the children of Africa coming home. Here they are. Give us the first right of refusal. Give us 3 months to see if diaspora companies, professionals can fill these contracts before you go to China, before you go to Europe. They owe us that. And if we are united, they will give it to us. Because building of Africa can only be sustainable if the children of Africa are leading the process. Secondly, the 6th region has not yet been ratified by the heads of states. With 1 million names, we can then go to the president of Kenya, who is the champion for the diaspora at the African Union. We give him a concept note with what we want and what our demands are, and he will table them for decision. If we get the 1 million names by August of this year, we have time to have that tabled as a decision. And once the heads of states officially approve the 6th region, now we are going to be treated just like the other regions. Each region has an average of 10 to 14 countries. They send one ambassador to the African Union. They live in Addis, and they are the ones who make decisions about what goes on in Africa. We need to be on that table. Once we are approved as a 6th region, in our case, we will be the largest region of Africa. We would like to ask for at least 15 to 20 ambassadors to come from the diaspora, to go to Addis and begin to advocate for the issues pertaining to the diaspora. Currently, we have no representation, and we have got to address some of those pivotal issues if we are going to move together as a united front. And then, of course, lastly, with 1 million names, it is easy to say everybody $1,000 a year, which is equivalent to $83 a month. In 1 year, we'll be sitting at $1 billion. Now make it 2 million people, 3 million people, 3 million out of the US, 2 million out of Europe. We are looking at $5 billion in 1 year. By the time we invest it, you are looking at $10 million. It's a no-brainer in a very painless way for everybody. So I'm urging everyone that if you believe in your Africa, if you believe in your children, if you want to leave a legacy for your children, go to ouraddi.org, ouraddi.org, and sign up. We just need you to stand up and be counted. You need to stand up and be counted because you matter. Without you, we'll always complain about why are we being so disrespected. Stand up and do something about it.
Thank you so much. I am a member of ADDI, obviously. I know the power of what that brings to the table. And for those who are listening, as the Excellency was speaking, I went down the list of those who are on. Some of you are leaders of big companies. You're leaders of association, even in the American community. I want to use this medium to charge you to connect with Her Excellency. Go on that website. This is not a talk shop to end. This is a talk to get you to action. I see 100 Black Women, all of those big entities out here, and many more. Please make sure that we continue this conversation beyond now. Right now, we're all angry. We are all not super happy with what's happening. What Her Excellency has itemized is what we can do. We didn't script her. We didn't tell her what we were going to be talking about. She came, and I don't even have to read my notes anymore. That is the power she brings to the table. So if you're hearing all of those leaders, I don't want to call you out, but I see you. You definitely need to connect with ADDI, and we need to figure how we can get this message to those platforms at your request so that people can hear this. Because a lot of my African-American friends, Your Excellency, they're asking me, how can they come home? How can they connect with home? And I, as Remy Duyile, don't have an answer for them. And I know severally you have answers. Are there specific suggestions or recommendations, or even diaspora who have been here too long, to integrating back to their Africa, not necessarily carrying themselves physically, but engaging now, and what are those things that they can do so we can support them, and maybe one day we will take our rightful positions back home in Africa?
Well, in the immediate, through ADDI, I'm already lobbying some African heads of states, two currently, that I'm asking to see if they could create a pathway for descendants of the formerly enslaved to come home to Africa if they should choose to come home to Africa. That would be the easiest way, because in order to benefit from the continent, you only need to be a citizen of one country. And then, of course, you have the same rights as somebody born on the continent. So that one just takes negotiating with the heads of states and making sure that you have a proposal that they can accept. For example, you could come up with, if you are a professional and you go teach or you offer your services for 3 to 5 years, then you can become a citizen. Or if you come in and invest maybe 200,000 in over the next 5 years, then you have your pathway to citizenship. So there has to be some way of making it easier for this to pass through Parliament. I know the ideal situation is to be able to say, look, I'm Black and I'm gonna go home, but it's not really practical. We have to do something that we know is more likely to get approved. Mm-hmm. The real issue, the way we deal with it from a global way, if we were to take our issue of the 6th region, the document would clearly state, all people of African descent, regardless of where they were born, are Africans and they are awarded the same citizenship status as those born on the continent. We need that language in the concept note that will be presented to the president of Kenya, Uhuru Kenyatta. That document, once approved, we must also insert, for those who are not born on the continent, there has to be a pathway that can be accepted from the AU level to say, like I said, it could be if you're a professional, if you're a company, you do business for X period of time, then you become a citizen. That way, once it's approved from the African Union, the heads of states then all take it to their parliaments. Now they have to do it because it's a decision. They put it through their parliament and it is ratified. What that does, it allows African Americans to be able to say, you know what, I can go to any country in Africa. If I just meet these requirements, then I'm in. Because that will be a pathway specific to the descendants of the formerly enslaved. Something like that needs to happen. It's way past due. The children of Africa must come home. Now the onus is on us. All this could have been done, but we're not organized. Who was going to be approaching the African Union? Who is the representative group that represents the African diaspora? That was not there. That is why, if you ever question yourself as to why you should be part of ADDI, it is because without you, we cannot have a voice to go represent you, to make sure that you have the first right of refusal of all contracts coming out of Africa, to make sure that your voice, you can become the next ambassador to go live in Addis and represent the African diaspora. All that can be done, but it starts with us uniting. So again, it goes back to, so for those who say, well, I don't know what to do, well, guess what? Go to our ADDI and sign up. That's all you gotta do. And while you're there, if you wanna contribute to the operations fund or whatever programs we're in, that would be appreciated too. But if you can't, that's okay too. Just stand up and be counted. We need your voice and we need your vote.
Wow, we need to stand up and be counted. You've heard it. Thank you, Your Excellency. Another question that I got before you came was, our youth all over the continent and even in the diaspora, they have been engaging themselves. They wonder, how can we create a platform that would allow them to even engage better, to be able to be the solution providers in Africa? And here, most of them are highly placed in big companies in America. Their fellow Africans are in Africa, and they're smart as you know what. How can we create a platform to help them to work together, integrate, and to just be a global citizen?
Well, again, it goes back to our inability to work together. But with ADDI, we're going to have a youth platform, entry into every country. We were supposed to have opened 8 ADDI offices this year, but COVID has messed up with our plans. But we've rescheduled Zambia. Whether we'll make it or not, I don't know. We scheduled Zimbabwe. We're going to be looking at Eswatini, South Africa, Ghana, Nigeria, Sierra Leone, and Liberia. It'll take us probably into the year. But the entry into every country, we're fundraising for the youth program and the women program. The youth and as well as the legacy program. The legacy program, we're saying we're going to offer round-trip tickets for the students who are rising third or seniors in college to go to college in Africa for a year. So not for a year, for a month. They'll get a round-trip ticket. While they're in Africa, they'll be assigned to a host family where they can go on weekends or at night. Because we're saying our children must begin to engage Africa. They're not gonna know Africa by osmosis. Secondly, when we go to each country, we're going to have a youth program and a women's program, empowerment. We're going to be giving 250 to 1,000 no-interest loans to women and youth. And every recipient of a youth fund, as well as the women, they will be partnered with a mentor in the diaspora. So this is where you can begin to engage your brothers and sisters. We're simply trying to create an environment that we can begin to network. Some of these people in the continent, they have great ideas. They just need a little bit of support. And someone would say, well, Ambassador, what can somebody do with $250? Well, I'll tell you what a woman can do. If she lives right outside the city and she has an acre of land or even half an acre, she can start growing vegetables with the right seeds, which she needs money to get the right seeds. She can start growing vegetables, and before you know it, she's supplying the local market. A young man with $500, he can buy a table, an umbrella, a chair, and his first set of SIM cards. And before you know it, he started his business selling SIM cards. A woman with $500 can take the $500, buy a sewing machine for $300, and the other $300, she uses it, the other $200, she uses it to buy the thread and fabric she needs to start her business. Africans are very creative. They're just the most incredible people I know. You give them a little bit of money and they can feed an army. So I know $250 to $1,000 is a lot of money, and we can empower a lot of youth and women. And also, if you become a mentor of a woman or a youth, we're only asking that you speak to them once a month, just see how they're doing, see if they need any suggestions, ideas. We also ask that you commit to $100 to them a year, if they need it. If they don't need it, then that's fine. I know somebody said, oh, Ambassador, why just 100? I said, because we don't want to do anything that's painful for anybody. We don't want to do anything that's painful for anybody. We must do what we're doing because it is the right thing to do and it is comfortable to do it. That's why even investment in the fund, we're saying $83 a month. Of course, the fund, when it's ready, the money people will talk to you about it. But we don't want anybody to do anything that they're going to consider painful. I just know if we have the numbers, there's a lot that we can do. So yes, $100 or more, if you want to give your mentee more, you're welcome to. But we're saying we need to start engaging with each other. So each country is going to have an ADDI Youth Empowerment Program, an ADDI Youth Women Empowerment Program. When we go to each country, we are going to have an office, and we will leave officers for the youth, for the women. We'll have a minimum of 3 people initially, one from the diaspora who has to be an African-American, Afro-Caribbean, African, Latino. Yes, and then of course, one diaspora from that country plus one local person. And as the office grows, we keep adding one. But we're saying we've got to begin to integrate each other. Also, when you go to a country, we're also bringing businesses. Prior to going to that country is going to give us a listing of all the businesses that they have, and we will float them out to the diaspora. So diaspora can decide what they want to invest in. When you go to that country, those diaspora will have their appointments made already with the ministers, and they will take their conversation to the next level. We're also asking that each president gives us a hand-picked team that will work with us, because we're not going to go through the red tape that most people go through. So far, every country, every president I've spoken to, they've been in agreement. They've agreed to give us a team. And so that team is who we report to as diaspora, and then they'll report directly to the president. So we're trying to pave the way and make it easy for us to go into Africa and build the Africa that we want.
Thank you, Your Excellency. Another question that came, I was in a discussion with someone about ADDI, and this question came that, does that mean I don't get to run my own business? Do I close shop and that's the end of it? I know that's not the case. So I want you to kind of address that. I'm sure some people have that question in their mind, that it's an enhancer, it's an enabler to whatever we already do. So over to you, Your Excellency, for clarity.
Thank you. Well, most of the activities are within the diaspora. We're simply going to be doing, for the most part, mobilization and awareness. The activities themselves are going to be on the continent. So yes, whatever business that you're doing, we're going to make it easy for you to join with others who are doing similar business so you can bid for the big contracts in Africa. So no, you continue to do what you're doing. We want you to continue to thrive. As a matter of fact, if we can support you to where you can become an affiliate of ADDI as your organization, that is exactly what we need to do. Remember the last board meeting we had, Sis? I knew of one organization that was working on doing some medicine stuff where you can pay for your parents' medicine here, and the parents will pick up the medicine in your country. And then I also knew of another doctor who was working on telemedicine in his country. So I looped them together because the doctor's doing the telemedicine and this guy with this pharmaceutical program, it was a perfect marriage. So now they're in conversation. I took, again, a guy who was looking to bring coffee to this country. I linked him up with a diaspora who is now back home in Kenya, who actually has a network of coffee growers, but small-scale coffee growers, where he can actually help them. So I put them together. Now they're working together. That is the role of ADDI, to just help you become better at what you're doing, to expose you to other people that you may not be able to be exposed to. ADDI is here to bring us together. ADDI is not going to be doing business in the diaspora. We are mobilizing, but we are going home, which is where we need to be. So no, you don't have to worry about ADDI. In fact, I encourage you as a company to be an affiliate of ADDI. Together, we can make whatever you're doing, we make it better.
Okay. Thank you so much for that clarity. I knew the answer, but I wanted, because I'm sure some people are thinking about that. And I was told that, Remy, don't make this a long thing. We want to be able to ask questions. So in another 10 minutes, I'm going to stop my questioning and give the platform to a few people who might have the opportunity to still want to ask questions that maybe I haven't touched on to do that. But before I do that, Your Excellency, one thing you have done consistently is having that drive and that urge to unify. Even before this George Floyd situation that blew up everybody's anger and patience, you've always had this keen interest in all of us coming together as Black people and knowing that together we can make a difference. I know that you've been successful at it because a lot of people who maybe were on the side fence are now on board. For those who are still on the side fence, especially for our African American brothers and sisters who are still not quite sure, is there a way we can create something that would allow either them to hear from you or to really see what the possibilities are? Because a lot of them are looking for how to taste their Africa. What can we do together, even with my corporation and you, to ensure that the voice of our brothers and sisters, especially the Black Americans, are heard and that they know that we all are one and we love each other? How can we make that happen like yesterday?
Well, the key thing is we have been lied to. I have seen many over the years, African Americans who feel that their suffering was worse than the suffering of Black people on the continent. They feel that Africans on the continent, something you think you are superior, others think they think they're superior to them. They're all lies we've been given in order to keep us divided. The reality is, once we understand our history, I wrote a book which is going to be on Amazon beginning next Friday, Africa 101. .org. It'll be the e-version of it. The print is still back in line. I had pulled it back to add a discussion on what happened to George Floyd, but it's back in line again. The book was meant to say there's only so many videos I could do. There's only so many speeches I could give, but there's a need for us to begin educating our children. There's a need for us, the hunted, to begin telling our story. So it's a good book that I recommend to everyone that you must read if you really want to understand why. I'm saying this to say there's a section in the book that I took a picture of, it's a photograph of Black people being hung in Matabeleland, believe it or not, by the founder of the Boy Scouts, Baden-Powell. People don't realize he was a Rhodesian. So I took a picture of Black people hanging from a tree in Zimbabwe in the 1890s, and I put another one next to it, Black people being hung in Georgia. And the guy, Baden-Powell, called it, the guys who were hanging from a tree in Zimbabwe, he called it the Christmas tree ornament, because the Black people hanging from a tree, they look like ornaments on a Christmas tree. And Georgia. So I wanted people to see that the abuse that was going on in the Americas, it was going on in Africa. It is the same evil people who were the perpetrators. So when you understand our history, you'll then begin to realize why we are fighting a common enemy. You must know your history. It is only when we understand our history that it becomes easier to understand. So for those who are still on the fence, it's quite often because they don't understand. So I urge you, the e-version of the book is coming. Check out Amazon sometime next Friday. It's going to be africa101.org. africa101.org. But also, I have an interactive version, which is the hardcover. And that one, you can listen to me talk about each chapter. There's a barcode. You scan the barcode, and you can listen to me talk about the chapter, why I wrote it, what I expect you to get out of that. It's really an educational book. It's interactive, and it's the kind of book that you want to sit back and read with your children and grandchildren. So you can say to them, children, these are our issues. And certainly me and you, Remy, we should be able to sit down with our children. 20 years from now, when they say, Mom, what did you do when there were problems in Africa? We need to be able to say, children, these were the issues. This is what we did. This is where we are living off. And this is where you need to pick up, because the fight continues. I don't think we're going to succeed in our lifetime, but the least we can do is come together and begin to address these issues. Otherwise, honestly, I don't think we should commit our children to more George Floyds. We simply cannot. And it starts with simply that. So for those who question why, ask yourself, are you okay with the status of Black people today? Are you okay with more and more Black men being murdered? You heard that thing that was on CNN yesterday, where police officers were heard talking about how they're waiting for a race war and they're looking forward to killing Black people. Is that the world you want to leave behind for your children? The answer is no. So if the answer is no, that is the reason why you must go to ADDI and sign up, because that is the beginning of the journey of turning this ship around. We have been riding somebody else's ship. It is going in the direction of that other someone else. It is performing and delivering on their agenda. We must get off that ship, get in our own train that is going in the opposite direction, which is where we belong, where we will be also charting our own way forward and implementing on our own agenda that ultimately is what's best, not only for us, but our children, our generations to come, and for the entire Black race.
Thank you, Your Excellency. I mean, I can keep on listening and listening to you. And one thing is there's this energy in you that never dwindles. There's this energy in you that wants to do more and be more and want to provide solutions. People have asked me, how does she have all this energy and why? And you've answered some of it, but I'm reading some of their questions. The energy is a fire that's leading you all the time, anywhere, anytime. So for those who are listening to you now, I'm sure the energy, they can feel it. What is that instigator of such an energy that's so consistent about your presence that even people who have never heard you speak and have heard you online can't wait to meet you? What is that energy? Where is that coming from?
Well, I think I'm just basically the journey of course, growing up in Zimbabwe, the abuse, it was racist, it was during apartheid. People don't realize there was apartheid in Zimbabwe, but we grew up under apartheid. The discrimination was everywhere. And of course, for me, if you read my book, it starts with the prelude that talks about my father sharing with me the manner in which our land was taken from us by the white settlers. It was cruel. It was gruesome. Some of those hangings that I was talking about is because the villagers were fighting back, did not want to give up their villages, and they were murdered. They were just hung. They were shot. It was terrible. And my father grew up telling us that white people, the British people, were devils, and they're thieves, and that's one day we are going to defeat them. So I grew up hearing that, and I'm glad my father lived to see us we didn't particularly get that particular land back that was ours, but he got some land back with the land redistribution program in Africa. So that fire has always been in me. The injustices, I just can't stand it. I can't stand injustices in any way, shape, or form. When I came to Washington, I knew we were disrespected. I just didn't realize the disrespect went all the way to the highest levels. I'm talking disrespect of African leaders, blatantly. Disrespect of African leadership, blatantly. I'm talking in your face. And I just, in first few meetings, I'm like, what is going on here? But finally I said, you know what? They can fire me if they want. But I'm not leaving this meeting with these people thinking that I'm believing in the lies, that I'm tolerating the abuse. So I started speaking up. I remember one time I just told one young man, I mean, this senior, very high-ranking officer in his 60s, and we get to meet with this young man, about 35 years old. If I had set up the meeting, I never would have allowed it, because there's something called rank that we must follow. Just because you're white doesn't mean you can speak to a much, much higher level person than you. But the meeting was set up from the embassy in Africa, and then, so I had no control over what, but I would not have allowed that meeting to take place. And this young man is slouched on the couch and legs crossed over as if he's in his living room, and you're talking to a very high senior level from Africa. I couldn't take it. I said, you know what, I'll deal with the senior level, because I'm clearly crossing the ranks, because I was not supposed to speak. But I just told him, I said, excuse me, I won't say the title of the person. And I looked at the guy and said, could you please sit down? Just like that. It is that disgusting. Oh, he quickly jumped up and, oh, I'm sorry. And I said, no, I just want you to know that this is a very senior level official who should not even be talking to you. So I'd appreciate it if you could be more respectful. And he turned red in the face. They're not used to that, you know, but it is disgusting, and it's everywhere. You know, we go to these meetings in Africa, half the room, it's Europeans. We're talking about African issues. And my question was, why are you here? So one day I just got tired of it. I said, we're talking issues to do with Africa. A third of the room, all of them sitting in the back. I said, why are they here? I said, are we invited when they deliberate on issues to do with Europe? I see no reason for them to be here. I said, I'm just pointing it out. They have not made any contribution. They're doing nothing. They don't need to be here, you know. And so I was vocal in those areas, and they feel entitled. We will never be invited to their meetings. Why are we inviting them? So we have to be vocal. We must speak up. It's an injustice. They know they're abusing us blatantly, blatantly. There's no hiding it. Yes. So that makes me see red. That makes me see red. And I will fight until I have no more breath coming out of my lungs. It is wrong. And if we're going to make this place a better place for our children, we have to keep fighting.
Absolutely, Your Excellency. Oh my God, this is a part of a story I haven't heard. Every day we get some new tips. And I remember when I was honored to meet you the first time you were in Washington. I told you, I think I said it jokingly, that the first time I was invited there was through another person who was not an African. So I took offense to it, that how can you be inviting me to my house? But thankfully, when you came, you allowed us to see the beauty of that house, the African Union, and how relevant it can be and what we were able to do. Since that day, my fire, my inner drive for Pan-Africanism rose. I've always been about community stuff locally in America, but that you made that giant leap in me to say, you know what? There is so much more. And I had the privilege of going to Ethiopia and observing through your platform to see what happened. And I looked at it, I'm like, these are regular human beings like any of us. They don't have two heads. And I don't say so much, you know me anyways. I just looked at all of the environment like, wow. So we need to get involved is the bottom line. That was the message I took. And the getting involved does not have to be in a particular format. We can be free to be authentic. And Your Excellency, that's what you have been. You've been authentic. You've given a lot of us more permission to even shine, to rise, and to be confident, to not feel like we can be defeated. Because if we can work it, and we know our history, in God's time, we will get the results. So we appreciate you. I know everyone wants to ask one or two questions. So we want to say thank you to you. If we were in a room, we would stand up and clap. I know that we're not, technology has limited us, but we appreciate you. And I want to leave it open to a few people who might have specific questions that leads to progressive Africa. So whoever raises their hand, I will unmute you if you're muted, or if you would rather just type it in. And if we don't have questions too, we can let Her Excellency go. So if you have a question, I'm watching to see hands. I don't see any hands yet. Any hands raised?
Yes.
Thank you. Thank you. All right. Hi. That is the, all right, Deborah. Okay, we can't hear you, but we see you.
Okay, let me.
There you go. That's the president of the 100 Black Women.
Microphone on. Hi, Deborah Nixon. Have you considered networking with the Black Chamber of Commerces that are here in the United States, as well as targeting specific organizations that support an economic development agenda, cross-continent and cross-diaspora, so that we could potentially truly develop contacts that may be serving the interest of ADDI, as well as their personal economic interests around business development and youth development.
Not yet. We're going to be looking for precisely people like you. I know the president of the 100 Black Men is going to be on our board. Also, I think there's an association of Black businesses or something like that. But yeah, no, we are getting ready to be engaging an organization that can help us begin to reach out to as many organizations for purposes of membership drive as well as fundraising. So definitely people like you, I hope you can consider to come and be part of our board. We need input from people like you. So if you're interested in joining our board, please get in touch with Dr. Remy. We'll be more than happy to have you. So you can also be the one to help us, lead us in that direction. That's the whole beauty of having ADDI. We can always find somebody within our midst who has something to offer. And so when we come together, we're just a complete package. So thank you. I hope you can consider joining us.
Mm-hmm. Now that is an interest, but let me clarify. I am not Dr. Virginia Harris, who is the president of the National Coalition of 100 Black Women. I'm the president of the Prince George's County chapter of the National Coalition of 100 Black Women, and do have a keen interest after my work with Dr. Leon Sullivan in the diaspora development and youth development. So I feel like the two areas that you targeted are right on point. And I thank you for your vision and creativity and the opportunity to serve.
Thank you very much.
All right. Thank you, Deborah, for that question. Any other question? Unmute yourself, please, and ask your question. Her Excellence. Okay. Hi, Falawe.
Good afternoon. I'm calling from Lagos, Nigeria, and thank you so much, Her Excellency, for such powerful and inspiring address. I work in the education space, and I currently lead an organization called Teach for Nigeria. And a few things you said struck me, and I'll keep my question in 1 minute. And one of the things that you said was, if respected Africa equates to the powerful Black race, once we understand our history, we'll know where we're coming from. And there's a need for us to begin to educate our children. The first, the second, and third one, and when I think about Nigeria in 2007, we took out history from our curriculum, and we did that for about a decade. And when I think about the current education system that we're running, majority of our children do not have access to quality education. And I stopped to think, how do we define this quality education, and who defines the quality education for us? Already the system is structured in such a way that automatically it cuts out majority of these children from the system. And so if we're looking at how we're going to equip our future generation with the values, the knowledge, the skills, the tool to really transform our continent, how do we engage our leaders to decolonize our education system? How do we start to think about an education system that is driven by our own culture, heritage, values, and our own roots? And it's just one of the things that, I feel I was hoping that with COVID-19 and this pandemic, we'll stop in our tracks and just rethink how we can, reimagine our education system. But I'm losing hope at that happening. But I want to hear from you, your thoughts on how we're really going to deconstruct and decolonize our education system so that we're educating for our own agenda and it's serving the agenda of Africa. Thank you very much.
That's actually a very important question. It applies not only to education, it applies to every sector. It applies to everything that we're doing. I'm gonna put it in a very simplistic way. I often tell my white friends that sometimes I wish I could be a fly on the wall when white people are talking about how stupid we Black people are. The dumb things that we do. That is not a job of the president to design an educational system. It is the Minister of Health. The Minister of Health is of Education. The minister is given a budget. It is the responsibility of the minister, who you hope is a minister who has experience, who you hope is a minister who understands education, not a minister who became a minister because they were headmaster at some local school in some village and they helped the president mobilize people there. Before you know it, they are picked up from a village school and become the Minister of Health. They don't have that global view of health education. So we must first and foremost make sure that those people who are picked to lead a sector, they understand that sector, not because they've earned it through some kind of service, some political service of some sort. So that wherein lies some of our problems. Some of the ministers are not quite comfortable with the ministries that they're leading. But that one, my sister, in terms of us continuing to use colonial textbooks, that goes right back to the Minister of Education. It is up to the Minister of Education to say, we are redoing our books, commission our own local historians. They can write the textbooks that we need and tell our story. So yes, that one, take it to the Minister of Health and say, why are you continuing to push these textbooks? Why is the government spending money in buying textbooks that are spoiling our children, continuing the brainwashing? It is up to the Minister of Health. Take the problem where it belongs. Call your Minister of Health and say, fix this. And you know what? We in the diaspora, we can do it. They can commission us. We can now, through ADDI, we reach out to our educators. I can tell you, we will have many textbooks written at various levels, right here in the diaspora. So it goes back to we Africans, we Africans.
The final summary, now come back, Jacob. Even this type of communication.
Can I finish the comment I was making? The comment I was making was, if you are in a position of leadership, if you go to the negotiating table with a colonized mind, your thinking is going to be colonized. There are many things that we Africans could have dealt with. I know we work under difficult conditions, but there are many things that we could also have done. So the textbooks are a perfect example. Let me give you another example in education. The average professor to be tenured in Africa, you have to write anywhere from 15 to 40 research papers. Those research papers, for you to be approved, cannot be approved by any professor in Africa. They're gonna go to Europe or come to the United States. The question I have to the African professors is, if you do not trust each other to review each other's work, what makes you think we should be comfortable with you teaching our children? Why aren't these professors trusting each other? North American professors can send their work to Southern Africa, East Africa to West Africa, and vice versa. Some of the most intelligent professors I know are in Africa. And guess what? You send those research papers to Harvard or to Yale or to Oxford, guess who is reviewing them? African diaspora. Just because they happen to be at Yale doesn't change anything. We need to have our own review process in Africa because we can. But look at another thing. You send your research work outside Africa. They review your work and they tweak a little bit. Before you know it, your research work is theirs. We're also putting out intellectual property. One professor, 15 to 40 research papers, depending on the institution. All that intellectual property is going out of Africa. So when I addressed AAU year before last, I posed that same question. I said, you know, headmasters, presidents of universities and professors, what is wrong with this picture? Why aren't you reviewing your own work? But it those stupid things that we do, that we could certainly take care of. We don't need anybody to approve it. But our minds have got to be in the right place. Even those professors actually think their review is better if it comes from Yale. Nonsense. That's not true. Far from the truth. There are more intelligent people in Africa, in my own opinion. Don't let me go there. But anyway, you can take sector upon sector upon sector. There are a lot of things that we could take care of. Take, for example, visas. Why do Africans still need visas to go anywhere from one part of Africa? Who is keeping us from opening the borders for the children of Africa to be free? Why do we have to fly into Europe only to come back to another part of Africa? Why, when African airspace is closed? There were dumb things that we could have done as Africans, but we just didn't do. And that's why I said, when it's all said and done, it's up to us. It is our mind. We must wake up and understand that we look at Africa first. The rest of the world is saying their countries first. We must say Africa first as well. Let's begin to look internally for our problems. I hope that COVID-19 is teaching us a lesson, starting with medical supplies. We could not even order them from China anymore. China was refusing. China was looking internally to taking care of its own people. So we were forced to begin to look internally. So yes, thank goodness, a lot of COVID supplies are being supplied and manufactured in Africa. Even ventilators, our young people are inventing them. Testing kits, our young people are inventing them. Where had we been able to buy them from outside, we would not have invented them. Africa is very capable. We have some of the most intelligent youth I know. Yeah. And so we need to look inside. And the educational system, my sister, you are quite right. There is no need why we should continue those textbooks. The Minister of Health needs to deal with it. The ministers of health in each country, they must deal with it. Shame on them if they continue to push colonial textbooks. There is no excuse for that.
Thank you, Your Excellency. Any other question? Okay, yes, sir. Mr. Ido.
Yes, good evening, madam, and good evening to Her Excellency Arikana. I'm really delighted that I'm able to join
Someone
you.
Is speaking right now. Please, can we give him the audience? Okay, please go ahead, Mr.
I'm really
Ido.
delighted that I'm able to join you from Abuja, Nigeria.
Thank you.
But see, much as all these things we want to achieve are so much desirable and we just have to do them, I want to encourage us to approach our problem through non-governmental organizations. I was in government for 35 years, and I'm speaking from the background of that experience. See, the people we have in government in Africa, they are the people who replace the colonial elite. The colonial elite does not have the interests of Africa in mind. So does the people they handed over to. So the change that we desire, the change that we really need in Africa must be done through non-governmental organizations. You saw the experience of the ambassador in Washington when he confronted the problem, and when he spoke frontally about the problems of Africa. You saw the turn of events. The same thing is going to happen to any minister, any person in hierarchy, even up to the African Union. So what I'm saying is that we should approach achieving the change that we need from the angle of non-governmental organizations. And also we should direct energy towards the area of really loving ourselves, because between Africans, within Africans, love is missing, cooperation is missing. And just like the ambassador spoke eloquently, the things that we are carrying to Europe and America, we can do them in Africa. Only we have not given ourselves the chance to do these things. So 2 points I'm trying to emphasize. The change we desire should be targeted towards non-governmental organizations. There are quite a number of them, networking and doing things. I am involved with one that is, we call it Do It Right Africa Initiative. These type of organizations exist in almost every country. We should network with them with the objective of upturning the existing political order in those countries. If we don't do that, we will just be talking and talking and talking. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Mr. Ido. Over to you, Your Excellency.
My brother, you're so right. That's why ADDI is actually an NGO. We hope that when the diaspora come, we join hands with the private sector in Africa. What is going to drive the African continental development agenda is a strong private sector. The private sector that is in Africa today does not have the capacity, enough capacity. There's not a single country right now in Africa that has the capacity to build an airport, to build a railway line. But when we bring in the capacity from the diaspora, we become a complete package. So you're quite right, my brother, you hit the nail in the head. Africa needs a strong private sector that can drive the continental agenda without interference from the politics of the day.
That is so true. Thank you, Ms. Ido. Thank you, Your Excellency. Any other questions, please? Okay, I don't see hands. Any? You can unmute yourself, please.
And then I'll take only one more because I
one more question. The last question before we recap this. Okay, I believe that Her Excellency has done an amazing job of educating us, of empowering us, of engaging us, and of charging us for what is next. Brothers and sisters, wherever you have called from, we say thank you to you. You have heard the call to duty, call to action. ADDI is a solution platform that is yours that also would help you and I lend our voices in our unique way to the solutions and the problems that we want to solve in Africa. We have a leadership in Her Excellency, Dr. Arikana Chihombo-Rikwao, who is constantly faithful about what has to do with Africa. I call her Mama Africa when I don't call her Big Sis. She's our Mama Africa, constantly showcasing and paying it forward. So for everyone that's under my voice right now, ADDI, we're going to post the email address. It's somewhere where you need to be able to get more information directly. There are team, there's staff that are waiting to hear from us. This is your entity that you helped to build. So please do not let this be another talk shop. She's very busy. She coined this time out because she knows we don't just talk, that we act. So please follow up on what you have heard. You don't have to come through us. Just follow up with ADDI. Let's make sure that we take our rightful positions to get that 1 million number mark, which I know we can all do, and all of the resources that she has articulated beautifully. Your Excellency, I am personally grateful. Our team is very grateful, and everyone on this call, we appreciate you taking time out. And I know you're heading to another event, but we thank you so much, and you will hear from us. Clearly, we are going to be part of ADDI, not as an individual, even as a company. So together, we can get our Africa back to where it needs to be. Your Excellency, thank you so much. God bless you. To every of our listeners, we thank you for coming. We're going to share this with so many people, and we hope that you enlist to volunteer in some shape or form with ADDI now, so that together we can take this message to our continent. And to my African-American brothers and sisters, Africa is open for you. Africa wants to welcome you back home, and you don't necessarily have to go physically yet. When we build the systems, Africa will come to you. If you invest and you get your reward back in your investment in Africa, Africa is coming back to you. Then you can build a platform that might say, oh, I'm going to retire in whatever country you desire. Your Excellency said it. You can be a citizen of your chosen African nations, and all the systems we can learn through ADDI. So thank you all so very much. God bless you. We appreciate you. Your Excellency, thank you. Thank you, all of you. God bless you.
Thank you, my sister, for having once more our ADDI.org and our Africa101.org. Don't forget.
All right. Thank you so much. Thank you, Your Excellency. If you still have any questions or thoughts, as Her Excellency takes her leave, we will be on. You can ask your questions. We'll follow up with her. She has to join another event. She was just coming from another one, so we were honored to have her be able to spend some time with us. So if there are still questions or comments that we want to discuss, if not, the meeting will be adjourned, and we have this series coming, and various people will be brought to this platform so we can have conversations that will lead to action. And the action is what will really make us change the plight of us, the Black diasporans. Thank you so much. God bless you.